Hi everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two-Kid interview.
We are joined by New York bestselling author Chris Grabenstein.
Mr. Grabenstein has written the book series Dog Squad, The Smartest Kid in the Universe,
Welcome to Wonderland, Haunted Mysteries,
the New York Times best-selling series, Mr. Lemoncello, and so much more.
Thank you for being with us.
Well,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate being invited to join you two kids, and thank you. And I can't wait to see what kind of questions you've got.
You write children's books. How are your books influenced by your own childhood?
Well, I always try to remember what I felt like when I was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, because things change. Like in schools, you guys don't have chalkboards anymore. We used to write on boards with chalk. It was itchy chalk. It would make your hands itch. But now you have smart boards. But the way you feel when you're in front of the class and you don't know the answer to what the teacher wants you to write on the board because you didn't do your homework, that feeling is the same. So I try to remember what it felt like when I was a kid.
How do you come up with the ideas for your books?
Usually I tell everybody the best thing to do is take out your earbuds for at least 30 minutes every day and go for a walk where you're just kind of daydreaming. Like, for instance, one day I was out just for a walk. I live near Central Park here in New York City. And it must have been near Halloween. And I started thinking about my least favorite Halloween candy of all times, Smarties. Those pastel colored things that are wrapped up in a plastic tube. I hated them because they tasted like that chalk that I used to write on the blackboard with. But I said to myself, what if? And those are the two magic words that have gotten every single one of my stories started. What if I could eat a Smartie and become a smarty? What if there was such a thing as ingestible knowledge? So I did some research on ingestible knowledge, found out that it might be a thing, and that's how the smartest kid in the universe got started.
What is your process when putting a book together?
Do you decide the end before the middle?
Or do you put it together in order?
That's very good. Usually there's a structure to all stories because the reason we read stories are, when you think about it, great character transformation machines. We like to see a character go into a story one way, go through a bunch of trials and tribulations and obstacles and conflicts, and come out slightly changed, in my books, for the better. So I always know what the beginning and the ending are going to be like because they're almost polar opposites. If a character starts like a slaggard, lazy kid who only goes to school because he likes hanging out with his buddies, that story might end with him being the smartest kid in the whole school and saving the school from destruction, which is the story of the smartest kid in the universe. So I have done a lot of homework. I go to a lot of classes, and I've studied a lot of screenplay structure. So I block out my stories in a 3-act structure where I know the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then I make up stuff in between.
You finished your first draft. How much does it take to revise the book?
There's no such thing as good writing. There's only good rewriting. You know that book you guys mentioned, Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, the first book in the Lemoncello series? I worked on that book for 2.5 years, and I rewrote 50% of the entire book 8 different times. I have got stacks of cardboard boxes in a storage space filled with all the drafts. But the good thing is that once you've done enough writing, even when I wrote for like the school newspaper, or if I would write a homework assignment, I realized that it's fun sort of to dash down what's on the top of your head, but know that that first draft is never going to be perfect. So you get to go back and you get to make it better. So I go back every day. I start the day by rewriting the 2,000 words I wrote the day before, just doing light edits, making sure everything makes sense, then moving forward. So I do that every day. So almost every chapter in my books have been rewritten about 50 times before I turn it into my editor.
What did you think of the Mr. Lemoncello movie?
I thought it was a great way to get kids, unlike you two, who I think like to read. There are a lot of kids, believe it or not, who don't like to read. They like to play video games and stuff. So they saw that movie on Nickelodeon, and it was kind of goofy and funny, and there's like the egg yolk dripping down people's hands. And they said, maybe if I picked up that book, it would not attack me. It would not burn my fingers. So a lot of kids who don't like to read saw that movie and started picking up books to read. Now, I didn't write the screenplay for that, but I do know that the screenplay was 60 pages long and the book is 300 pages long. So doing my third grade math, they had to cut 4/5 of the book out to make the book that long. Then it was going to be on Nickelodeon. So they put in all sort of goofy stuff. And I think they also read a book of mine called The Island of Dr. Libris, where characters magically come to life on an island. And I think they mixed the two together. So it is not the most faithful representation of my book, but it did get a lot of kids to read. Fortunately, we're doing a graphic novel version of Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. So that's kind of like doing a storyboard for a movie. And I got to do that. So now you'll get to see what my movie would have looked like.
Can you tell us about a time where you were doing something and noticed someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a book?
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time. In fact, my wife and I, whenever we're traveling and we meet like a rude person, we'll go, she's going to be in a book. Because it's really fun. You go out there and you it's like Harriet the Spy. You get to go out there and soak things up and always looking. I'm trying to think. And the bully who picked on me when I was in 7th grade, he got to be put into a book. So a lot of the things in my books are things that I've picked up in my life.
When you decided to become a children's author, did you worry at all if you could do it?
I completely worried if I could do it because I started out, I don't know if you guys know this, but my first books that I ever got published were mysteries for adults and thrillers for adults. And I did about 12 of those, but I had all these nieces and nephews who could not read those because those were books for adults. And so someone read my ghost story, The Crossroads, which was originally written for adults, and said, if you cut out 70,000 words and all the adult language in this book, it might be a good book for kids. So I did it. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I didn't know if kids were going to like it. And so I found some of my good friends' kids who are the right age. They read it and they loved it. So yeah, you're a little nervous. Like, are these kids going to like this book? So at first, you just never know. You got to take a lot of leaps of faith when you're trying to do something creative.
You were in a comedy troupe in New York City.
Can you tell us a funny story about your time doing that?
Well, we used to make up scenes and stories from audience suggestions. Everything we did was funny. The most exciting time was when like celebrities would come. And Robin Williams loved doing improvisational comedy too. And you might know him as Mrs. Doubtfire or the voice of the genie in Aladdin. He was a wacky guy. So he came and performed with us. And I remember it was really funny when Barbra Streisand, who was a big famous singer, came to see us. And one of the best improvisers in our group was such a Barbra Streisand fan that the night she came to see us, he froze up. I kept giving him like, I'll set you up. Here's your best stuff. And he just was, ah, ah. He was just stunned. He could not go on.
You have written a lot of books with best-selling author James Patterson.
What are the best parts and the hardest parts of collaborating with another author?
Well, it's not that hard because James Patterson is, as you guys probably know, the #1 best-selling author in the history of #1 best-selling authors. He's also very prolific, and he was my first boss back in 1984 in advertising. And advertising is always a team sport. A copywriter like I was works with an art director, and you come up with ideas together, and you sort of mold them together, and then producers get involved when you shoot the commercials, directors get involved. So it's a big team sport. And working with James Patterson, he always has the idea on all those books that we did together. And he also sends me a 30 to 40 page outline where every step, beginning, middle, and end is blocked out. Then my job is to do the first draft to bring it to life on page. And we talk every month. And the best talks are when he says, it's great, keep going. The worst are, Do you have a pad of paper and a pen handy? That means he's going to have a lot of notes for me. But we have more of those first kind than the second kind.
What writer has had the most influence on you?
What writers had the most influence on me? Probably Stephen King, who writes adult horror and scary books, because I love reading his books. And he wrote a book called On Writing, a memoir of the craft, which in the middle part of that book, part of it's an autobiography, but he sort of takes you through like what it takes to write a book. And he says, you don't think about you're going to write a 100,000 word book. Just try to write 1,000 good, solid words every day and come back the next day and do the same thing. And in 100 days, which is only 3 months, you'll have the first draft of a book. And it goes step by step. You know, you want to quickly establish your scene. 2 characters come on. One wants something. One wants to stop them. So that was really great. It taught me that maybe I could go from writing what I used to write, which were radio commercials and TV commercials that were like 70 words long, to creating a book that could be between 50 and 100,000 words long.
What advice do you have for young people who want to write?
The first advice for young writers is first become a young reader. You've got to read, and then eventually you're going to read something and go, oh, this was no good. I could do better than this. And that might get you going. And then the other advice I give to young writers is you guys are busy. You're doing podcasts, you're doing the YouTube channel stuff, you got sports, you got homework, you probably want to swim in the pool from time to time. So don't sit down to write a book. They're too long. Write a short story. Like even if it's just 1,000, 2,000 words long, but if it has a beginning, a middle, and a twist, and whoever reads it goes, oh, I didn't see that ending coming, though I should have, because everything was in this story. If you can do that, when you have a little more time, you'll be able to write a book.
That's big advice.
Do you also have a smaller tip? Something you do when you're writing?
Don't be boring. Don't be boring. Never assume that anybody wants to or has to read anything you've written. Have you ever picked up a book and read just the first sentence and gone, this is boring, and you put that book down? Did you stick around to see if it got better? No, nobody does. So always write with that in mind, that you have to entertain and grab the reader's attention and pull them through. When I wrote advertising, they always told us, nobody wants to hear this commercial. You've got to make them want to watch this commercial. So we had to do something to earn their attention.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
Well, yes, I do. We have the first graphic novel of Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library will be coming out in November. And then we're going to do the second book too. Mr. Lemoncello's Library Olympics is going to be a graphic novel. There's going to be a 7th book in the Lemoncello series called Mr. Lemoncello's Fantabulous Final Game. It'll probably be the last story in what I'll call this arc of the Lemoncello universe. There might be some other stories, but not the same group of characters that we've been growing up with. And my wife and I, JJ, we wrote a book together called Shine. I don't have it back there anymore. I used to have it up there all the time. And we're working on a new series for slightly younger kids, for like kindergarten through 2nd grade, called Stinky's Stories, where we're taking the fun of the library down to a younger generation. And it's all about a stuffed skunk in a school library, where if you don't like the way a story ends, a Stinky will help you come up with if you use your imagination, you and Stinky will come up with a new story. So the first book in that series, coming out, I think in 2024, is called Stinky Stories, The Boy Who Cried Underpants. And after that, we're going to have Stinky Stories, Jack and the Bean Stink. And after that, we haven't started yet, but we told the editor, I think the 3rd one's going to be The 3 Smelly Goats Gruff.
Finally, it's time for our Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions.
Whoa,
Are you
wait a
ready?
minute. I didn't drink of water for the turbo. Okay, I'm ready to turbo it.
Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
I can't believe it.
Number 2, what is one subject that you love to learn more about?
One subject I'd love to learn more about might be cooking. I wish I could cook better.
Number 3. What is your go-to snack food?
Popcorn every night.
Number 4. What's your favorite book growing up?
My favorite book growing up was the one about the 7 brothers who drink the ocean, because I have 4 brothers and I thought drinking the ocean would be a fun thing to do.
Number 5. If you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
I think I would go to jolly old London town. I've been there a few times and I'd like to go back and see some plays.
Number 6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flying. Come on, we all want to fly. Why we fly in our dreams.
Number 7. What is your favorite cartoon as a kid?
My favorite cartoon show as a kid and even today was and is Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Number 8. What's your favorite rainy day activity?
My favorite rainy day activity, reading a good book.
Number 9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
You two would be 2 of them and my wife, JJ. You get to meet JJ and we'll tell you more about Stinky.
Number 10. What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
I was given this advice from someone who was doing theater like I used to, and he told me there are going to be fans who love what you do and fans who absolutely hate what you do. So concentrate on the people in between.
You did great. Thank you so much for doing that.
And thank you for spending this time with us.
We appreciate it so much.
And we cannot wait to read your future books.
Well, I can't wait for you to read them.
Well, bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, you guys. We're clear. We're clear.